Welcome back. Now, you may call it a battle of the bar if you like, and the just concluded election in Ondo State saw three lawyers, three of them actually, jostling for the governorship position of that state. With 293,830 votes, incumbent governor and candidate of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Rotimi Akeredolu, secured the mandate of the people of that state for a second term of 4 years. So he'll be the governor for the next 4 years. You add that to, well, they outgoing 4 years now. That will make it 8 years. So flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party, DEJI360, trailed behind, while Akeredolu's deputy, turned rival now, Agbo Alajayi, who represented Zenith Labour Party, finished third place. Now, several electoral observers have adjudged the election relatively peaceful, but then not just peaceful, and some have said the election was also transparent. But joining me now to discuss this and more on the conduct of the poll, as well as analysis of the result, is Nelson Ekujimi, who is a political affairs analyst. He also took part in observing that election in Ondo State. We also have Libros Oshoma, who is a public affairs analyst and a lawyer. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program once again.
Thank you.
The last time we were together, we were analyzing the outcome of the Edo governorship election. So this time, it's the Ondo governorship election. Libros, let me start with you. Would you say the outcome, any surprise at all?
No, not at all. There are no surprises. Anybody that was expecting a surprise probably had not been following elections in Nigeria. In Edo, we also saw how the incumbent, won the election. So you don't expect an incumbent in Ondo to also be defeated.
But we've seen where incumbents were defeated in elections in this country.
Yes, we have seen where incumbents were defeated, but not, with the kind of similar factors that we saw play out in Edo and Ondo. Mind you, for the people of Ondo North, just like Edo South, this was the second term for the incumbent. And so you have Ondo South waiting to take over after the turn of the Ondo North.
So they were not willing to take any risk at all to put their man forward.
Yes. So they had to join forces with the incumbents because it was easier for them to wait for 4 years than having to wait for another 8 years.
Okay, let me just...
so it was pretty simple.
Mm-hmm. Let me pause you there. Nelson, everyone thought DEJI360 of the PDP was going to give the governor a run for his money. Eventually, it didn't turn out that way.
Well, the truth of the matter, like Libros rightly said, was that there were some local political currents that played out in Ondo State. And, he rightly mentioned the issue of this North, allowing the northern part of the state
to have their two
terms. The North Senatorial Zone to have their 2 terms, so that the South will wait, and come in after that. I think that was a very, very big factor that decided how the election went. Because a lot of people would have, maybe would have loved to vote for DEJI360 said, it is not yet Akure Likon. That was the language in Akure Likon, that it is the turn of Akure. And somebody from this central zone had just finished 8 years.
That's Mimiko.
That's Olusegun Mimiko. So people were like, oh, the South the Central had 2 terms of 8 years. Now the North is having a term, they're just about to conclude a term. And it is better we allow the North to conclude its second term, such that the power rotation will now fall back to the South.
But that would certainly not have been the only reason why the election...
No, there were so many other factors. There was also the factor of, the governor has done well. Then there was also the monetary inducement. And like I said in some of my comments, I said when I went round, the monetary inducement was unlike in Edo, where it was brazenly displayed. In Ondo, some people said it was coded. And some people said, the inducement was, rationed in such a way that that in this area, we don't need to induce them. There are some factors that is motivating them. But in other areas, we know that we don't have the strength, that, the undercurrent is in disadvantage. There's need to, to raise our, ourselves so that, we'll not be able to, will not perform too poorly. And that was exactly what happened.
Libros, let's quickly talk about the deputy governor of that state. Would you say the outcome of the election clearly shows that the deputy governor probably overrated himself? Because a lot of people thought he was going to pull a surprise. I mean, before the election, everyone had said, look, the deputy governor is a political heavyweight, is a grassroots politician, and all of that. But eventually, it didn't turn out that way. He was able to just garner 69,000 votes. And when we begin the analysis of the results, we would also find out that he lost his own senatorial district. As a matter of fact, he lost his local government area as well. So, would you say it was just a case of the deputy governor overrating himself?
Yes, the deputy governor, I have never, the moment he left PDP, I knew he was a pretender and not a contender. You remember, he was in PDP, left PDP and moved to APC, and became the deputy governor to Akeredolu. And then because of ambition, he thought the Omoboriowo and Ajasin legacy will play out again in Ondo, but he forgot that the thunder does not strike on the same spot twice. And so he went to PDP. When he didn't clinch the ticket in the PDP, he moved to Zenith Labour Party. And apart from Mimiko has just served 8 years. Mimiko also does not have the kind of financial muscle to pull an election the way he did in his own election. And so when you put all of this on the table, you will know that, and then coupled with what I said earlier on, the permutations, you will know that the deputy governor was barely overrated. And at that point, I also thought that he should have, the moment he was rejected by PDP, he ought to have retraced his step, go back to his boss, apologize, and then complete the term with him. But, still pretending on believing that, he could pull any surprises. I really do not think that politicians have strategists in Nigeria. Because if they do, from the word go, they probably would have told him that this ambition was dead on arrival. The moment he was unable to clinch the PDP ticket.
And Nelson, do you think this deputy governor will make a rebound in the next election will be 2024 now? Do you think he'll make a rebound since by the arrangement, the governorship should be going to the south?
Yes, well, he's also from the south, don't forget.
And that would depend. Do you see him remaining in the Zenith Labour Party?
No. Even if he jumps ship back to any other party, I don't see him clinching the ticket in 2024 because of the fact that people will have come to understand the type of person he is, that this is a man whose personal ambition is greater than. So
he probably destroyed his reputation with this election.
Absolutely, he has removed the carpet from his feet, if you ask me.
Well, but people forget. In 4 years' time,
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Because this is Nigeria. People may just forget.
If the DEJI,
Libros.
People don't forget easily. If they do, they wouldn't have forgotten what happened in Edo 4 years before now. And so having crisscrossed from PDP to APC to PDP back to Zenith Party. And Nelson, my learned colleague in the studio, said it, that, his ambition is what is propelling him. And so for a man whose ambition is greater than any other's ambition, I would not want to subsume it for the larger interest of his people. I doubt if they will want to reckon with him in 2024.
All right. Okay. Now, gentlemen, let's quickly take a short break here, and we will be right back. And this time, when we come back, we'll be discussing an analysis now of the election results. Stay with us. Don't go away. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent.
Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that band tonight.
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues. All right, welcome back now. And if you've just joined us, we're discussing the outcome of the Ondo State governorship election results. I have Nelson Ekujimi with me here. He is a public affairs analyst and also he actually observed the governorship election that took place in Ondo State. I also have Libros Oshoma, who is not actually in the studio but is joining us via Skype. He's a lawyer and also a political affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. Now, let's talk about the results. So look at the results, and I'll start with you, Nelson, before I go to Libros. Rotimi Akeredolu getting 292,830 votes. Eyitayo Jegede getting 195,791. And then Agbola Ajayi, that's the big talking point. Nobody would have imagined that his vote was going to be this low.
Oh, well, except if we were not on ground in Ondo State, immediately some of us entered Ondo State. We knew that Agbola's strength only lies in the southern part of the state. That's the South Senatorial Zone where it comes from. So we knew.
And unfortunately, he didn't do well this time.
Unfortunately, yes, he didn't do well. So it was not a surprise that he pulled that figure.
Libros, you're looking at the figures now. What exactly do you make of them? Libros, if you can hear me, you're looking at the results now. What do you make of them?
Yes, I can hear you, and I have looked at these results, and I did say, even on the day of the election, I did say because Agbola had crisscrossed from both parties, it was going to be difficult for him to reduce the vote of a particular candidate. He will take from both sides, and so I'm impressed that he even scored 69,000. I had expected that his numbers would be lower than that, but if you look at that is 69,000. If you added it to the vote Akeredolu or that of Eyitayo Jegede, you would say that the result in any way. Even if you add those votes to that of Eyitayo Jegede, Akeredolu would still have defeated him. And so if you add it to Akeredolu, the margin would have been wider. But the only thing you notice from the numbers is that the numbers increased in 2000.
So in essence, excuse me now, in essence, what you're saying is that even if this man had remained, even if Agbola had remained in the PDP, because some people had said, look, if Agbola had remained in the PDP, then there was a chance that Eyitayo would have won. But then you look at the votes now.
Not at all.
Even if Agbola had remained there, the vote would still not have been up to what Akeredolu scored. No. The total votes, that's the combined votes of Eyitayo Jegede and Agbola Ajayi.
That's 69,000 to Eyitayo's 195,000 votes. It will still just up below 250, while Akeredolu scored about 290 something. And so they still wouldn't have been able to defeat Akeredolu.
Yeah, you want to say
something?
Yes,
I want to say something. That politics does not run that way. Because of the fact that some of the persons that maybe cast their vote for Eyitayo or Akeredolu will have loved to cast their vote for Agbola will have felt that there was no need for me to waste my vote.
That he was not going to win.
He was not going to win. So let me better cast. So the score that Eyitayo scored is not a reflection of if Agbola...
It really doesn't play out that way.
It doesn't play out that way.
It's not as straightforward
as that. It's not a
straight
jacket.
Okay, gentlemen, let's look at the results now. Just like we had in Ondo State, this time it was like a repeat election. Just the same candidates we had in 2016, the same candidate we also had in 2020. The only difference is that Agbola suddenly surfaced on the scene. But then we could say this was essentially, the election was essentially a two-horse race. So let's do a comparative analysis now of the two results. Libros, you can see the results. Akeredolu in 2016 got 244,842. And in 2020, he got 292. So he built up on his votes. In 2016, Eita got 150,380. He built up on that votes now. In 2020, he got 195,791. What exactly does that say?
Yeah, two things played out. In 2016, if you remember, the PDP candidate had a running battle with his party. He was in Abuja up to a month before election, a week, sorry, before the election. You know, even his party supporters did not believe, they didn't have a candidate until a week before the election, where the Supreme Court finally decided that he was the candidate. And so that also might have affected the turnout of that election, because if you look at the numbers are far lower than what you have in 2020. And then even for the APC candidate in 2016, if you remember also, a lot of people also, his party was divided.
Yeah.
If you, okay also was a major force in that election. You know, some members of his party supported who went to AD. You know, so that also shared his vote. But in 2020, what's the other candidate's name now?
Yeah, all
decided
of them
to work. Boroface, yes. Decided to work for the second election of Akeredolu. And so you saw that also increased the number of votes he scored. And we also saw a reflection of the deciding factor in PDP, the fact that, you know, they were more united than they were in 2016. So that's why you would see a larger turnout of voters. And the fact that the campaigns were relatively peaceful, and then people saw in Edo that, you know, as heightened as the tension was, but on the day of election, you know, it was peaceful. And then, you know, also people expected that INEC was going to be fair and that there was going to be peace. And when all of that happened, people were able to come out to have more numbers.
Okay.
But that still does not, you know, mean, if you just oppose that with the number of registered voters on the register, it's still abysmally low compared to what you have on the register.
Very low. Nelson, you look at these results. The truth is, in these elections, let's tell ourselves the truth. The governor had more money to campaign.
The incumbency factor.
Yes, the incumbency. He had more money to campaign. I was in Ondo during the period before the election. I would say the PDP candidate did not, from what I saw on the ground, you know, it appeared the PDP candidate did not have the financial muscle to campaign. So his campaign did not actually get off the ground as such, you know.
Absolutely. You know, in the last 4 years, the governor who came out, in 2016 as a green on, if you look at these figures, he had 244. Within the last 4 years, he had been able to spread his political patronage, and you know that would, you know, result into voting for him. Also, you recognize that the figure Itayo got in 2020 is greater than what he got in 2016, which, you know, has been rightly explained by liberals, that, you know, the division in his party, the late, you know, confirmation of his candidacy by the Supreme Court. So, but you must also not forget that in 2016, the then outgoing governor, was also in his party. So, which means that even the outgone governor then is jumping ship to Labour Party, Zenith Labour Party now, has not rubbed off on the Itayo's votes in the PDP. You can see that the Itayo's votes has, you know, come up. So that tells you clearly that, you know, a lot of factors favored Akeredolu in 2020 than Itayo Jege. And like you have rightly pointed out, if you get into town, the aura of, you know, the town being swayed in favor of Akeredolu was very, very there in the, you know, in the air. That look, people were likely going to, and people were like, look, you people you have not done enough campaigns, you have not done necessary, you know, patronage to the people, and this is where we are going to, you know, we are going to cast our lot.
Because I actually saw that in Ondo State. Let's take a look at the local government areas of the candidate, very important, because how well you do in your local government area would determine how the election would pan out. In the case of Edo, we saw where the candidate of the APC, Isaiah Yamu, lost his local government area, something that no one would have imagined. So if you can't win your local government area, then there's every likelihood and chance that you are not going to win the election. So we look at the candidates now. Liberals, look at 2016. Akeredolu from our local government area, he won it in 2016, and he won it again this time, increasing his votes by just about 2,000 plus. You look at Eyita Ojegede from Akure South now. He won his, he actually lost in 2015. He lost it, in 2016 now, just narrowly. Yes. But this time he won it by a landslide, if you like. And then for the governorship candidate of Zenith Labour Party, the moment he lost his local government area, Eseodo, he was only able to get 4,760, whereas the governor got 13,000 plus. That was a clear pointer that that the election was not going to favor him at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you remember the last time the Owo Aziz had the governor was Pa Michael Ajasin. And so for them this time around, they didn't want a repeat, like I said, of the Omobori Owo and Ajasin's saga. Even though then Omobori Owo is from today's Ekiti, because the new state had been created. The Omobori Owo is from Ijero in Ekiti. But in this case, you saw that Eyita Ojegede, because of those factors that we had listed earlier on, narrowly lost his local government in 2016 at Akure South.
Yeah, exactly.
And you saw that APC and the PDP, ran neck to neck in Akure South. Yeah. But in this 2020, the PDP, it was almost as if, just like we saw in Edo North, it was as if Akure South was the only place where the PDP, were heavily on ground. And so it was a smash for them, just like it was a smash for APC in Edo North. But for Eseodo, the Zenith Labour Party's area, first and foremost, the Zenith Labour Party belongs to Mimiko. Mimiko is from the center. The candidate is from the south. So, and then he came into the party a latecomer. It was almost as if he was looking for a platform to campaign for. And this area was the same area won by APC in 2016. And so, with the factor of incumbency, there's no way, even if it was from that place, there's no way he was going to take over the structures that were already in existence in that area. Mind you, you have local government chairman. Local government chairman will in turn appoint people, SSAs appointed from those areas, a commissioner appointed from that area. So all of these people will want to continue in office and will definitely give him a run for his money.
Nelson, you really understand the politics of this place, Eseodo.
Yes.
What in your opinion happened?
Well,
there?
my opinion is that
the
figure of Agbola in Eseodo was a shocker.
A shocker, honestly.
Because this is a man that had been touted to be a grassroots politician. Who started his politicking in Ondo as a councillor. He became a local government chairman, From there until he became a deputy. So you would have expected that with his supposed clout, that he would pull his weight there. But unfortunately, these figures that came out after the election put a lie to a so-called grassroots political heavyweight.
This is a reputational damage for
It's
him.
a reputational damage, if you ask me.
It's so bad.
Unbelievable.
Let's look at the next slide now. We're doing a comparative analysis now, 2016 and 2020. The Senatorial District now. Ondo North, of course, is where the governor comes from. He won Ondo North in 2016, getting 89,411 votes. And in 2020, the numbers shot up. This time, 114,111. And look at what the PDP got. Of course, the PDP also built up on that, 51,000.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary to talk about the Zenith Labour Party this time. So let's just concentrate on the PDP and the APC. Ondo South, 72,060. That's what the APC got from Ondo South in 2016. This time they pushed it up. So we are now beginning to see a clearer picture how Governor Akeredolu won this election.
Yes.
The results from Ondo North and Ondo South actually pushed him closer
Yes,
to the finish line.
the
So
victory line,
the result from Ondo
Yes.
Central only, boosted
Yes,
the figure
yes,
further. Because
yes.
when you add the figure of what he got from Ondo North and Ondo South this time, it's over 200.
Yes,
over
yes,
200.
yes.
And then he was able to push it
If
up
you-
with Ondo Central. And then for the PDP candidate, if you took away the 93,000 he got from his senatorial district, now Ondo Central,
Ondo Central.
his performance would have been abysmal.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it tells you clearly the political undercurrent in the state. And that was why we said Ondo North and Ondo South was the deciding factor. Don't forget, the figures that the PDP candidate got in Ondo Central was majorly from his own local government. That's
Akure
Akure
South.
North and
Yes,
Akure
yes,
South.
yes.
That's where he pulled majority of his votes. Other parts of the
Yes.
central, he just picked pockets of votes.
Pockets of votes.
So the political undercurrent, like we rightly said, that the governorship of the state should be allowed to rest for the next 4 years in Ondo North, while the South waits for a turn in 2024. And that is exactly what you can see from the figures. If you look at it, Ondo North and Ondo South had 100,000 plus, except Ondo Central, where the PDP candidate comes from. And you can see that in Ondo Central, the PDP candidate is almost coming to 100,000.
Yes, exactly.
So that shows clearly that, his people really wanted him, but the other part of the state said, no, we must follow the political permutation in this state.
Libros, your take on these figures?
Yeah, not different from Nelson's position. If you look like, I started with a breakdown of these three senatorial zones. And what the APC strategically did also was to concentrate their campaign on not just Ondo North. For Ondo North, they already knew that it was a done deal.
Done deal.
They didn't need to settle anybody in Ondo North.
Yeah.
It was a done deal for them. For the South also, it was a done deal because the South would want the North to complete their 8 years. The Central just did 8 years. The North took over from them, irrespective of party. So they would want the North to complete their 8 years so that it will naturally flow back to the South. And when it comes to the South, so the North can also support the South for the election. And so what the APC simply just did was to try reach out to a few persons in the Central to complete the spread. Because if you concentrated on just North and South, you might not be able to get the required, spread. All they needed was just 25% spread in the Central, and which they gladly got. They knew they were going to get it. And so once that happened, it was easy for them to coast home. And so where we also looked at, we discussed this even before the election, and we knew that Akeredolu was going to carry the day. And also, like we also have unanimously agreed here, the candidate, Ajayi, that's the candidate of the Zenith Labour Party, overrated himself for the fact that he was a local government chairman or a former councillor. He also should have remembered that there is a new cook in the kitchen now. There are the new local government chairman on ground with continuity. The special advisors from those areas want continuity. The councillors from the South we also want continuity. And so they will definitely give him a run for his money, considering the fact also that even though he's in government, he's falling out of favor. And so there's limited, also no much cash. Mimiko will not want to deploy. How much does he even have? He wouldn't want to deploy his money for an election he knew was dead.
And if you look, sorry to interject. If you look at the results now, you could say that Mimiko delivered somehow, because the highest result that Zenith Labour Party actually got. That's Agbola Jai got, was from the Central. And this must have been as a result of the Mimiko factor anyway. So Mimiko delivered.
So he took a larger chunk from the PDP than from the APC.
Yeah. I think you have a point there, because you have a point there. But the truth is that at least you could say Mimiko deliver, right? You could say Mimiko deliver.
Of course.
You can't accuse him
But
of
even if
being
Mimiko hadn't
totally
delivered,
absent in his local government.
he still would have, the election would have still been the same.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the last slide now before we close. The outcome of this election, of course, more registered voters this time, but you would have expected that the number of people who came out to vote would have been more than this figure. 595,213 came out to vote this time, compared to 584,000, even though it's higher than what the number that came out in 2016. But you would have expected that the number would be higher than what we have here. So at the end of the day, it's still a very few. I mean, the number of people who get to choose or elect who becomes the governor of the state, that must be very worrying.
No, it's absolutely worrisome, because for me, I look at the figures of the total registered voters, and it calls to question, or it brings to fore the need for us to clean our voters register, because it makes no sense. If we have about almost
not
2
even
million,
up to a third, not even up to a third, actually.
Yes,
yeah. And
you have just about 600,000 in about 2 million registered voters. No, it calls to question our voters' attitude. That these people on the register, are they really the voters? Because we know clearly that within 2016 and 2020, some would have relocated, some would have passed on. A lot of things would have happened. But you expect that for this type of election, with all the hype, that at least the voters' turnout should be close to half of the register. But don't forget that, universally, the total voters, accredited or registered voters that come out to vote on election day is not usually above 30 to 35%, even in advanced crime, except in the Scandinavian countries where you have over 50% of voters that will come out. In other climes, it is usually between 25 to 35, 40. At most, what you get on election day is 40% of the voters.
But Libros, what does this tell you? This voter apathy, it is still there. People are still not coming out to vote.
DEJI, it's not voters apathy. Let's not begin to blame it on voters apathy. Nelson said something that's very something. We need to look at our voters register again if it is over bloated. Because if you look at both figures from 2016 and 2020, for total vote cast in 2015, you have 5,887. For 2020, you have 591,193. And so what it means is that the differentials is not even up to 100 votes.
And that's what I'm saying.
So it is the same people, even though you have more registered voters, it is the same people that voted in 2016 that voted in 2020. Just, a few more. So what it means is that we need to go back to the electoral register and truly, like I said the last time, rework this register. Let's have a credible register. A situation where you have so many names on the register, and on the day of election, even the PVCs, I can tell you, INEC had complained that about 60% of the PVCs are still lying waste in their office. And so if you have 60% of the PVCs in the hands of INEC, what it means is that the actual numbers that you have should be about 40% of the number we're looking at. And then of that 40%, Nelson also said something, not everybody would want to vote. Because some of the registered voters are in Lagos, some are in Abuja, some just went to register back home for, reasons best known to them, or for reasons that we all know that are obvious to us. You want to participate in election in your state. So on the day of election, some are not able to travel in to come vote. Some are in the hospital. So, but then when you put all of this together, you still agree that before now, most of the voters register, governors who want to overbloat voters register, believing, that will also enhance and ensure that they eventually they carry the day on the election. So, but now with the introduction of card reader and Z-pad, where we are gradually enhancing transparency in the election, you'll find out that the numbers will not be above the number that we have always had. But unlike now, you remember during Maurice Iwu's time, the numbers were usually very higher than this because you could just print ballot papers, and you really didn't need to attract people to vote. All right. But kudos to INEC also, I must say, and kudos to the security personnel that truly we are gradually seeing improvement, in our election, even though we still have a very far way to go.
All right, now we have to end it here, and very quickly now, even though we have talked about, that the understanding in the state is that the next governor after Akeredolu should come from the south. Don't you think that on the basis of the outcome of this election, on the basis of the results that we have seen, that Eyitayo Jegede might be tempted now to come back for a third time? Libros.
You would never say never with politicians. But I believe that this agreement reached, the APC will want to respect that agreement, even though it's not
I'm not
PDP
talking about
agreement.
the APC, but I'm talking about the PDP's candidate now.
Even though it is not a PDP agreement, the APC, I know, will want to respect that agreement.
And because the APC would want to respect it, you think the PDP will respect it as well?
No, that's why I say it is not a PDP agreement. And so for that, if the APC respects that agreement, the South and the North will always team together to ensure that they deliver whoever emerge as a candidate. And like we saw with the Central will stand alone. If Eyitayo Jegede decides, to come, to stand for the election in 2024. So that's what I'm saying. So you need at least 2 and a fraction of the third, senatorial zone to win an election. And so if the Central let them consistently feed Eyitayo Jegede, if they do not have the buy-in of Ondo North and Ondo South, then the ambition, like we have seen, will always be dead on arrival. The numbers might even be reduced more than we are seeing now. All
right. We're out of time. Nelson, what do you think?
Well, my position is that any party that wants to aspire to the government house in 2024, it's there in the open in Ondo State that the next governor in 2024 has to come from the south. That is the general consensus. Even among people in Ondo Central themselves, they have said it that 2024, the governor must come from the south, because the Central had spent 2 terms of 8 years. Now the North is spending 2 terms of 8 years. So automatically, the governorship must come from the south. That is the understanding.
And if you have that kind of understanding, then no problem.
No problem,
There's
honestly.
Yes. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Libros Oshoma, who joined us from another part of Lagos. Unfortunately, you are not able to come to the studio because of the NSAS protest. Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for your incisive analysis. Nelson, who was able to beat the NSAS
protest.
Well, should I say checkpoints now to get
the carnival? It has become a carnival.
Thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your incisive analysis as well. Thank you all for your time. Well, that's how much we can take on the program. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.